Hey class, welcome to week two's lecture on the self in a social world. Just wanted to go over some of the main concepts of week two that will help you, some on clear up some things for the exam, and just also some extra stuff as well for your help. So let's go ahead and get started here. There's definitely some common mental errors in understanding ourselves. And I start with some of these common mental errors because it kind of helps bridge into what we're going to talk about, what I'm going to talk about in a second, on where these thoughts processes come from, how we develop them. But there's two different kinds of common mental errors. We've all been guilty of them, same with me. There's a spotlight effect and there's the illusions of transparency. And they're very closely kind of tied, a little related to other concepts, and they also kind of sound the same, but there's differences. This is where students will miss these two on the exam, actually. So heads up. Spotlight effect, if you look at the quote, says it's believed that others are paying more attention to our appearance and behavior than they really are. So we're in the spotlight. You know, they're paying attention to what we look like, who we are, that type of thing. Illusions of transparency is an overestimation of the mental state, of our mental state. We think that it's known by others. So we sit there and we're thinking about something maybe guilty we've done, or maybe some kind of like thought process we're embarrassed of, and we have an overestimation. We think people know about it. And I'm sure we've all done that. We've sat down and probably thought we're sitting in a room with family members or at church and we're just kind of stressed. My gosh, I can't believe everybody knows this single thing about me. And in all reality, they don't know. They really don't. One common error of illusions of transparency is like as if you're in class and you're nervous and you look at the rest of the classroom and you're thinking, my gosh, everybody knows I'm nervous, but you actually have a poker face. Maybe everyone thinks, my gosh, Kevin is really good at giving talks up in front of the class. They don't look nervous at all. So that would be a classic example of illusion of transparency. Now this dives into the spotlight effect, where we think we're the center stage. We think we're the center of the universe a lot of times. All eyes are on us. That's why we get nervous while we're sitting in public or we're in our group or in a classroom. We're just nervous. All eyes are going to be on us. Spotlight effect is that. That's what spotlight effect is, an overestimation of our assumptions that we think everybody's looking right at us. You know, are they really paying attention? So if you're 6'5", 6'6", like myself, you're tall, you walk in a room, everyone's probably going to notice you versus somebody who's, you know, a foot shorter than you. But in all reality, does everybody pay attention to just one person when there's 30 people in a room? There's 30 people in the room. So probably not. But that's what the spotlight effect is everybody thinks the attention is brought on them. One of the most interesting studies to kind of give you some ease, so that if you're ever wondering, you know, are people kind of staring at me? Do people really notice? Lawson did a study in 2010 on college students wearing a sweatshirt of an American Eagle. And they predicted that 40% of students who come in contact with these college students would remember the American Eagle t-shirt, when all in reality, only 10% actually noticed. Very small percentage, small population notices things that's a physical attribute. So imagine the illusion of transparency in this example. How many people know what you're actually thinking? Probably pretty safe, close to 0%. If you're in a group. There are some other contributing factors. There's more contributing factors outside of just a spotlight and illusions of transparency as to where things come from. Now, these other contributing factors are actually attributes that we get from who we are and where we come from and how we develop our characteristics. Because a lot of times we're developing our characteristics based off of who's around us and how we're going to interact. So sometimes some of the contributing factors of how we behave and project our thoughts are based around our social gatherings. You know, sometimes we're different around different races, gender, and ethnicities. You know, we're different around, like, if you're Hispanic, maybe you're different around your Hispanic friends. You're projecting something different versus being around others who are non-Hispanic. I put collectivists and individualists because they are different. Collectivist cultures are more like people from like countries like China. We think more collectively. They're not necessarily thinking about the individual. They're thinking about how, whereas individualists are thinking more about on an individual basis. Sometimes our thoughts and our behaviors are impacted by self-interest. We have social judgment on others. We don't want the blame when things go wrong. So we develop these personalities that we don't want that interest on us, that spotlight on us. Depending on the situation, of course, that's what we're looking for. So our own self-interest can drive our behaviors and who we are. Self-concern, we're worried about our self-image. So we try to internalize things, paint a picture of what we want people to see, so we create our behavior based off of that. Social relationships, like I said before, it depends on how you work, how you interact with your friends. You're different around your friends and your family members. You're different how we act overall, no matter what's depending on the social setting that you're at or the type of friends that you hang out with. I can guarantee you, I see like my son who hangs out with his basketball team. He acts a lot different than he does around his church gathering people, his church friends. Just kind of a different. It's not like he's good or bad with one or the other. Just has a different joking style, different personality. So just different ways that impact who we are. Where do our personal views come from? To be honest with you, they come from all over. Okay, so there's two different concepts that I want to talk about. One of them is self-schemas, and our personal viewpoint of ourselves come from how we analyze ourselves, like what we think of ourselves. There's a mental template in our mind. You know, if sometimes we believe that we're athletic, smart, funny, attractive. It just depends on what your thought process is. So ask yourself, you know, what do you think of yourself right now? How would you analyze yourself? You build your own self schemas of what you want to project out to people in to the world of those people around you. So that's where some of our personal view comes from. If you're a very self-confident person, you actually believe these things about yourself, and that's where some of your personal view comes from internal. Social comparison drives it all, pretty much. And not necessarily drives it all, but it can drive it. You're influenced by the surrounding environment, your parenting, how your parents raise you, your type of social environment your parents put you in contact with, your neighborhood friends, where you come from, church friends type of thing, non-church friends as well. So all that surrounding environment helps drives you in your thought processes and who you are. Social media is big. It's, to me personally, it's been more of a negative influence, but it can project some positiveness. You measure yourself, you know, am I like that person? That really drives a lot today in life. And maybe I just hold on to all the negative things where, you know, where it projects, there's a particular type of body image, happiness, house, cars, vacations. And if you're not, if you're comparing yourself to that and you're not doing it, something's wrong. Or if you're not doing it, you better start doing it to be considered the end. So that can also drive our behaviors internally and how we place ourselves in society. The looking glass self is another concept that's really interesting with social psychology. And this quote is, our self-concepts is not how others actually see us, but the way we imagine they see us. Think about that for a second. You know, if you're sitting in a room with three people and they're looking right, you guys are all looking right at each other and you're looking at them, the looking glass self would not say, what are they actually seeing? But in your own individual thought process, you're thinking, wow, I'm imagining the way they see me right now. And that can be pretty dangerous. That can lead to a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and it really isn't a good way of looking at yourself. The looking glass self, a lot of times we use this to create our behavior and reflect what we want to present to them. So, you know, if someone's athletic, if you know you're in a group with athletics, you know, and they view you as an athlete and that's not what they're viewing you as, you're going to want to present yourself as one, as an athlete. So, you know, you're doing this with politics, you're doing this with religion, you're doing this with studies, career, or whatever. So many people have talked to me privately about things, about how, like, man, I don't know why I tell people I want to get a degree in marketing. I don't even like marketing. I'm actually going to do it in psychology or another program. I just feel like that's what everybody wanted me to actually say, is what I'm told sometimes. It's built in society. It's built within a social setting. And so you kind of guess. So the way the looking glass works is the steps are, you kind of guess how someone appears, on how you appear to them. You kind of imagine the judgment of their of your appearance to them, and then you develop your thoughts and your feelings when you respond. So it's kind of like you guess how you're going to appear to them or what they think you are. You kind of imagine the judgment if you are or you're not that particular thing that you're imagining. And then through that, you're developing that feeling and response that you're going to project to those around you. And this is where the concept that I always talk about when it comes to the looking glass self, or any concepts when it comes to sacrificing who you are, is you do sacrifice the self. I mean, there's a lot of times I've talked to students, people at church, people outside of church who say, I really don't believe in certain of these political aspects, but I feel like I have to sacrifice that internal belief, whether it's religious, political, otherwise, just so I can fit into society or I won't get shamed. And so that does happen quite a bit. So sometimes you are sacrificing the self, and some of this stuff is a very positive influence too. So I don't want to paint a negative influence, a negative vibe to it. Sometimes you need that motivation. So you're imagining what other people are, if they're, let's say they are people who are looking to go on a mission, and you're so and you're thinking maybe not, but then these two or three individuals kind of influence you to really consider going on a mission or being an athlete or being a student, or doing better on exams. So the looking glass self doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing at all. Parts of the self view, there's a few of them. There's self-esteem, there's self-efficacy, and there's impact bias. So self-esteem is your personal worth. A lot of times students will look at, or not just students, just if you look at these two terms, self-esteem and self-efficacy, both could sound the same, okay? Because self-esteem means you feel good about yourself, you're confident. Self-efficacy is your level of confidence in regards to completing a task. Sounds very similar. Well, self-esteem is basically like if you like yourself or you feel good after hearing encouraging words. Okay, it builds up your self-esteem. It's your personal worth. Self-efficacy is actually your level of confidence in doing a task. So it doesn't necessarily have to mean self-esteem. It just means your personal level of confidence. You could actually have a low self-esteem. You know I had a friend who had a low self-esteem, but was had a really high level of self-efficacy in basketball and was one of the best basketball players I ever played with and against. So you could have a low self-esteem and still have a high level of self-efficacy. But these are two terms on exams that usually students do kind of get confused on when they're taking it. Remember, self-efficacy is your own belief in completing a task, your level of confidence in doing a task. Self-esteem is just your self-worth. You know, do you have a high self-esteem, low self-esteem, you know, that kind of thing. Impact bias can really throw everything off, or it could really help too. Impact bias actually, in a lot of ways, the book will say that it actually helps you prevent the cause. It's a negative event. There, I added the E, sorry for not proofreading this, but it's a negative event that causes stress. So you might be kind of waiting and thinking that completing a certain task, you might fail like a test. And so that impact bias actually influences you and encourages you, motivates you to study harder for that test so that you won't fail it. And matter of fact, impact bias is found to be more of a positive thing that helps people get through stresses of everyday life so that they're not, it's like that whole afraid to fail type of thing. Self-serving bias is another concept that is something to also learn and that you will be learning this week. It's a tendency to perceive oneself favorably. So you give yourself the benefit of the doubt. You take credit for positive performances and you give blame for negative performances. How many of us have done that? And how many do? It's probably more known on how many we've known people that do this. And I know I'm guilty of this myself, of saying, taking credit for the positive performance, like, you know, whoa, I passed this test, I did great, I got an A. And then on the flip side, if you get a C, it's, you know what, it wasn't my fault. You know, I could have studied more, but the teacher gave me a C. The blame is on the teacher giving you a C. And I'm, of course, jokingly not hinting anything, but that's an example of what self-serving bias would be. Never taking responsibility, hardly ever taking responsibility for those negative performances. There's other types of self-serving biases. False consensus effect. Basically, this false consensus effect is underestimating how much people agree with you. So remember, it's a consensus. Always look at it that way, like other people are actually agreeing with you more often than you believe. Like maybe everybody thinks you have the same political viewpoint, they agree with your viewpoint, religious belief, sometimes even your favorite sports teams or celebrity, when all in reality, they probably don't. So you have an overestimation of people agreeing with you. False uniqueness effect means that your talents and thoughts are unique. You as an individual is unique. So this is two terms that students do get mixed up on exams. Remember, consensus means people agreeing, like you can look at it as consistently people voting that they agree with you. Uniqueness means I'm unique. So that's the difference between the two. All right, so basically like nobody studies harder than me, nobody plays a sport better than me. You know, I have a unique talent you don't have. Self-handicapping is another one too. So I'm sure you all have heard of this one, but it's basically sabotaging of the self. And so, you know, the example is study or party. You know, so you know, if you want to get a good grade, if you think you know, oh my gosh, it's not a big deal tomorrow the test, I'm just going to go, I'm not going to study as hard, I'm going to go out and hang out with my friends, versus I'm going to study, it matters to me. Nope, it doesn't really matter to me, I'm not going to do well on the test anyways. That's basically what you're looking at with self-handicapping. You're basically protecting your self-esteem by self-sabotaging yourself into thinking that Sorry, my recording took a little bit of a hiatus there, but I'm back. With self-handicapping is basically you're sabotaging yourself. You're setting yourself up thinking that tomorrow's test or tomorrow's game or event, you're afraid of failing, so you stay up all night. You don't prepare for it as well, so you have that kind of an excuse to fall back on. Overall, self-presentation is what we're thinking about. Everything that we've talked about is about how you're going to present yourself in front of others. And honestly, the way you present yourself, as you can see, takes a lot of different hurdles, turns, twists, and different methods as to how you would want to project yourself. But everybody has a desire to project a positive image. Nobody wants to have a negative image of themselves projected out in society. Sometimes people go to at lengths to lie, to cheat, to save their image, but in the long run, they end up losing more friends and having a more damaged image in hindsight. So how do you develop your positive image? Just be who you are, a nice person who's as honest as they can be, who is as helpful as they can be, and being a good member of society. I always dive into the scripture, prayer, reading to help develop as an individual. And then I also talk about always going to the temple as well as often as you can to help yourself spiritually become the best you. If you become the best you spiritually, I can guarantee you'll have a positive image. You won't even have to worry about your image at all. Social media, careful on what's posted on social media. Guys, I can't stress this enough. I deleted all my social media accounts, maybe except for maybe LinkedIn. I think I have LinkedIn still. I'm rarely on it. But I deleted all social. I used to have Instagram, Facebook. I used to have Twitter, and I'm like, I don't even want it anymore. I deleted it, and I don't see all this negative stuff. A lot of it to me was a lot of social stuff, political stuff that really frustrated me. So I kind of dived off of it and just concentrated on scripture, prayer, reading, and enjoying movies, TV shows that made me feel better. And I have way more confidence, way more happiness in life. So just be careful what you see on social media. Be careful what you post on social media too, okay? And just be yourself. And that's the biggest key, is being yourself, not worrying about necessarily what people think about you, but more so you just being a happy person individually, and people will accept you for who you are. As you already know, you have probably a lot of friends, you have a certain group you hang out with. So, you know, the great thing about the church, because I'm a convert, is even nights like tonight on Wednesday night, I take my son out to Young Men's, and there's about 2 or 3 young kids there and young men that don't have a father, have a single mom, or the dad's a non-member and the mom's a member that's kind of active. And the mom's pushing their sons to go out into Young Men's to actually get some kind of good, positive friendships out there. And me and my son love to go to actually be there to help them out, make them feel a little bit more comfortable and accepted. So there's definitely a lot of events out there that you can invite your friends to if they're feeling low, or you can put yourself into. And all these great church events are very helpful positively. And that's pretty much it right there for this one. I hope some elaborating on some of these concepts helped out a little bit. I know some of those terms can be very closely related or sound the same. Hopefully this helped out. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know.